our trails are all about momentum and flow. So even if they're technical, like we label a lot of our trails technical trails, you've got to be able to find the flow on them. So we don't tend to build janky trails.
Okay. Nice.
And I basically went around cap in hand at bike shows, phoning industry contacts and just sold the dream basically. And was like, this is what we're doing. Love you to be involved. And we had pretty good reception really. And like,
we're underprepared when we started.
We really were. I actually remember the day we opened, there was like a queue of cars from here all the way down to the A470 roundabout because we were like signing people in with paper and all sorts of things on the entrance. We had to get like our parents and our friends in because it was just too chaotic. And
Martin Astley and Rowan Sorrell, welcome to the Downtime podcast on a sunny day at Bike Park Wales. We're sat in the Bike Park Wales classroom, as it's called, and we're going to be talking all about the history of Bike Park Wales as you approach 10 years, which seems insane. I remember the first time I came here and it doesn't feel like quite that long ago. But before we kind of get into the nitty gritty of the bike park, just start off by giving us a little bit of background on like what you two were up to before this. What was your path before Bike Park Wales? And Martin, we'll start with you.
Okay. So it's a really long story, so I'll cut it as short as I can. Essentially, I've been riding bikes, like really been riding bikes since I was like a kid. I used to go in the woods and send it on whatever I could find before I even knew what the word mountain biking was. So I've been riding for a long, long time. Got properly into mountain biking probably when I was about 13, I would say, and started racing roughly around that age. So that's a long, long time ago.
How old are you now?
I'm 41 now.
Okay.
So I've been riding bikes forever. And my passion for mountain biking has just really guided, like not just my career, but kind of my life really since then. So at university, I studied zoology and sort of dabbled with a career in that after uni.
What is a career in zoology?
So not a zookeeper.
Yeah, okay.
Zoology is basically animal biology. And I was actually an ecologist for a little while.
Okay.
But I literally like had an epiphany and was just sitting in front of a computer one day and was just like, this is not what I want to spend my life doing. I was probably like 23 or something like that at the time. And quit my job, went to Canada, worked for Whistler Mountain Bike Park and for Kona out there. I did some stuff for New Order sort of films, like building some of the stunts for their videos.
Yeah, cool.
And kind of one thing led to another and ended up coming back to the UK and having a career in predominantly like marketing and brand management in the bike industry.
Yeah, you worked at some of the bigger distributors in the UK. And
and kind of managed, Troy Lee, Intense, Rapier, various brands over the years. And just got really good exposure to the industry that way. And kind of at some point along that line, Rowan and I met. I think it was 2004 we met.
Yeah, 2004.
Yeah. Go on then, Rowan, give us a bit of background from your side.
Yeah, sure. I've grown up in South Wales, just outside of Newport, and kind of got like Martin, always rode bikes. So I always was a kid playing on a bike in the street, but didn't know it was a sport as such, fair. Like mountain biking. Probably got into it when I was about 15, I think, like seriously. Kid in school brought in an MBUK and said they're going to race. And I thought, go along, have a look. Did that, went along, did the race. It was a cross country race back then. Did like 2 or 3 of those, like really liked it straight away. But it was only like probably 3 or 4 months later, someone said about a downhill race. And that was a changing moment for me, doing a downhill race and just being like, oh my God, this is the best thing I could possibly do. And it's all I want to do for the rest of my life. Yeah. So that's, I kind of remember that vividly. And then after school, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I just wanted to ride my bike, and hadn't quite figured out where it was going to take me at that point in time. Went out to the Alps, I think when I was like pretty young, about 20. And again, that was like eye-opening moment. Just why is it so different when you go to France to like what we have here? Yeah. Like we were pushing our bikes up hills here and sitting in the back of cattle lorries at a downhill race. And you go out to France, you've got these ski lifts and all these amazing trails. So I guess we were sort of planting a seed. And me and Martin then came together in 2004.
Was that through racing? Like, how did you meet?
No, it's through like mutual friend contact. So Duncan Ferris and Phil Saxena.
Okay.
So Phil is owner of Velo Solutions UK.
Yeah.
But I met him when I was up at Leeds in uni, and we worked together on the first 4-cross track at Fort William. So
okay.
like 2001, I think.
Yeah.
So that was my first sort of dabble, if you like, of designing something or working on mountain bike track. And again, sort of planted a seed. I knew I enjoyed it, but didn't know like kind of what could happen from there. And then the Cumcarn project was a funny one, really, because it all came. I think it sort of came together at the last minute for all of us.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I was working at Mojo Suspension, and they were based in Risca then, which was great. I was working for Chris Porter, and he was like awesome, really supportive of me and all of his team. But you were just working in like a small unit, like rebuilding shocks. And I remember he said like afterwards, you were a bit like a caged animal. So
I can't even imagine you did.
he like, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I just know I had like this drive and passion for bikes and didn't know where it's going to take me. And then through being at Mojo, I heard about Cumcarn downhill track being a proposed project, and the people who were building the cross-country trails, like the trail centres at the time in Wales, like Coedy Brennan and Afon Argoed, they were going to be building it, and they were going to be building it kind of what felt to us like on our doorstep.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, why is a cross-country like team come in to build a downhill track? So that was going on. And then all of a sudden we heard the project was off because they didn't have enough funding to do the project, and they didn't have a team to build it. The team had pulled out. So Chris Porter stepped in and sponsored it. He said, like, I'll back this project. I want it to go ahead. It's close to Mojo. And I phoned the Peter Cloak, who was a guy in the forestry at the time, who was like managing that project, and said, like, you do realize there's other people who could deliver this.
Yeah.
So I linked him with Phil Saxena, whose company then was Full Contact. And then that's how we all came into it. I had to quit my job to do it, which was scary. Like, I just got a mortgage on a house in Risca, first house. And I think it was like 2 months later this came up. But a lot of deliberating, but it just felt like there was an opportunity there and something I wanted to be involved with. And I'm pretty sure you left a job to do it as well. Is that right?
I just graduated from uni and I'd been labouring on a building site. So I was literally labouring, and a project came up, and through chatting with Dunk Ferris, I was like, man, can I get involved in that? Like, I definitely want to be involved. And luckily it worked out. Phil offered me a job. I quit my job labouring and turned up, and we met in the car park at Cumcarn in September or whatever it was that year.
So that, I guess that was like our first exposure to like a project like of that nature, because at its time it was quite a big project. It was the first permanent uplift in the UK, I think, but it was short-lived. The project was 5 months and we were in and done. But I didn't have a job to go back to. So fortunately managed to set up a little contract then with the forestry, doing trail building, working just in South Wales, Avon and Cumcarn. And then, went on to set up a company where we travelled around building trails. And Martin was away in Canada. We kept in touch. And I don't know if you remember, I pulled you in to give me like a second opinion, I think was probably the best way of putting it. Like, have you heard of Gorton? Yeah. So that was one of the first like projects I did under the trail building company that was like almost like a mini bike park, I suppose. And I knew Martin had been out in Canada and like working in Whistler, experiencing all of that. So, I got his input, and then I just remember we rode it afterwards. Must be like 6 months or a year later when it's actually built. And both through our different experiences at that time, we're like, we need to try and make this happen in South Wales.
Yeah.
Why South Wales? Is it because you were from this area, or?
I think it was it's a factor for me, but I think the main thing is like we both had an understanding through traveling other places abroad that you had to have like, first of all, you got to have the hills.
Yeah.
So you need the topography and you've got to have the catchment. Like if you haven't, like the reason Whistler is so good is it's really close to Vancouver. So, you know, they've got like a market which is really close to them. So we always felt like South Wales was going to be somewhere where there were enough people close that, you know, it didn't have to be, you try and do it in the very far end of the country, then it's got to be absolutely spectacular to get off the ground.
Yeah.
Whereas,
fair.
you know, you want to be able to like build momentum.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you're only an hour from Bristol here.
Yeah. And that is a huge factor. And to be honest, like, I don't think we actually even discussed the concept of doing it anywhere other than South Wales. It just was the natural.
Yeah.
We sort of started a big search, didn't we? And I remember driving around in Anna, who's now my wife's little purple Fiesta, like all over forestry blocks in South Wales, just like up and down fire roads, trying to find sites that would and wouldn't work and sort of shortlisting really. Yeah,
that's right. And interestingly, like actually Gethin, where we've ended up was probably not like at the top of our list then. I'm so pleased this is where we did it. I think it's absolutely the right site, but it's like a journey that you go through and we were learning all the way. But yeah, we spent a lot of time going out and scoping things around South Wales.
Yeah, fair play. So what was it that you wanted to achieve then, Mike? Can you give us what was the vision at that point? Like, because the scale that you're at now is insane, but I'm interested in kind of what you set out to achieve from the start.
Sure. And I think that's probably what made what we did different to what existed before. And what we did at the time was completely like revolutionary is maybe too big a word, but it was the first time it had been done like this anywhere in the world. So not just in the UK, like the scale in which we undertook this project from day one with the facilities, the number of trails, the uplift, it just hadn't been done anywhere. So what we were trying to do was essentially create a year-round mountain bike resort is probably the word. So, you know, we'd seen in New Zealand, Canada, the Alps, like what can be achieved, and some places that had done it really well and some places that had bits that were good and bits that weren't good. We basically just wanted to pull together like all the best bits of what we'd seen and put them together in one location where it was designed from the ground up for mountain bikes. So it wasn't like a winter operation that had been switched over to sort of try and make a bit of money in the summer, but the whole thing had been designed with mountain biking in mind and with like good quality facilities. Although when we started this project, our vision was definitely like a small wooden hut with ticket sales from it and not what you see today.
Yeah.
But we ended up going down a journey where sort of the government got really behind the project. It was actually a pretty horrendous period getting that all off the ground. It took us 4 years of like full time nailing it to get this place off the ground. And our vision changed a lot during that period, I think.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. I mean, one of the things like looking back is, and it's easy to forget this, like is we actually started out, we were going to do an out and out downhill centre. So when we first started working on the concept, that was the direction. So smaller scale facilities and like a set of 6 or 8 downhill runs. Cause you know, we both had downhill background and kind of initially felt that's where we were going to go. But yeah, as I say, because it took like 3 or 4 years before we actually got to a point where we really had to nail down the final plan.
Yeah.
It evolved, didn't it? And we realized like the time was just right because trail bikes weren't very good at the start. They've really, like now they're incredible.
Yeah.
So we were just at a point where the technology was getting way better. So bikes were way more capable and you could actually ride them downhill trails, which you'd struggle to have done that beforehand.
Sure, yeah.
And I think on top of that, trail centres had kind of had this huge upsurge and brought loads of people into the sport. But they kind of like petered out, they hadn't evolved with that bike technology and riders' skill sets.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you had people who had got into mountain biking, they'd ridden trail centres and they were looking for like that next thing. But they didn't necessarily want to throw themselves down Riola or Fort William.
Yeah, fair.
So it's like a combination of the bike's improving and us just realizing we should do it for trail bikes because that's going to bring so many more people into the sport and into a bike park ultimately.
Yeah. So, because it feels like Bike Park Wales in its current guise anyway is a real strong kind of entry point into the sport for a lot of people these days. It's probably like for a lot of people coming into mountain biking, the first uplifted bike park they go to in the UK is going to be here. Yeah. Was that not kind of necessarily the original vision? It was maybe a higher end, more
like
people
at the very
more like yourselves. Yeah.
You know, we were like, you know, kind of early to mid 20s and riding downhill, and that's not on your mind, right? You just you just want to send it when you're that age. So the first vision was just a fairly traditional downhill site. But I think like really from an very early stage, we wanted it to be super inclusive. And we always wanted it to offer everything from kind of the beginner mountain bike through to the expert mountain bike. And that's really been in our DNA ever since then, is that we want to be a pretty broad church. You know, we really want to be as inclusive as we possibly can. And you know, you're here today and you can see how many kids are here and how many families are here. And
it's amazing.
It's awesome. It's like these days, now I'm 41, that's one of the things that excites me more than anything, is seeing the new people in the sport. And like our office is just at the end of the green trail, and just hearing people when they come down it is so cool to just like experience people catching the buzz of the sport. You know, the sport's given all of us so much. It's so cool to see people get hooked on it. But that's not to say that the other end isn't important. And I think in our next phase, that's definitely going to be a big part of it, is that we still ride a lot. We're still super passionate about it, and we still want, you know, challenging trails to ride for ourselves. So there's still plenty of that as well.
Interesting. Yeah, we came a few weekends back with like old uni mates, and everyone pretty much has got kids now of varying ages. So some of the older kids came with us. I guess the youngest was probably like 9 or something, up to about 17. And it was so cool. Like there's something for everyone. Everyone was having a good time. Yeah, fair play. It's cool for that.
It's been one of the most rewarding parts. Like for me, I've got 2 boys who are 5 and 6, and they're both kind of getting into riding now, and riding here with them, that's been like really, because my wife, who was also kind of having explained that bit, but our wives also became heavily involved in the business very early on, and became directors and kind of helped us found the business really. But yeah, so Anna, my wife, she's a big rider as well, and we get to ride here with the kids, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is amazing. And you know, there are a lot of trails on the hill now. We'll talk about that in a bit, but you didn't open with like 1 or 2 trails like a lot of bike parks do. You went kind of fairly big from what I remember early on. I'm guessing that comes with a significant amount of investment required. Like alongside finding a venue, which is, you know, you ended up here in Gethin, but what other things did you have to get done to bring in investment, to get, I guess, brands on board to support? There must have been a huge amount of work in that 4 years that wasn't just like stuff like health and safety and bits. There's a huge amount.
It was a massive challenge, and like obviously there was no blueprint. We didn't even have like a business that we could look at to try and work out what do we think they needed to do this. So that like kind of everything we've had to do in this business all the way through, we've had to invent it as we've gone. So yeah, obviously we had to raise money, and we came into this as, you know, normal people. We didn't have trust funds or anything like that behind us. You know, we didn't have loads of money, so we needed to raise it. And I don't know whether we were lucky or the timing was right or what, but we actually didn't have anybody say no to us when we went to them for funding.
For real?
Yeah, not a single person said no.
That is pretty unheard
that's true,
of.
and that includes like private individuals, companies and sponsors, and then like banks.
Yeah.
And lenders.
Wow.
So yeah, I don't know what it was in particular, but yeah, we borrowed money, we took investment. We borrowed money from a bank and from a private individual, and we've got to shout out all of those people and sponsors, because like I basically like wrote this document which your dad put into a graphic design for us. Nice. And I basically went around cap in hand at bike shows, you know, phoning industry contacts, and just sold the dream basically, and was like, this is what we're doing, love you to be involved. And we had pretty good reception really, and like, you know, Chris Porter deserves a mention again, I think, as well, because he like put his hand pretty deep in his pocket and backed it, as did a couple of other, you know, Hugh, local businessmen, got behind it. And then we were fortunate to meet Ian as well.
So Ian runs Pedal Bikeway in the Forest of Dean, and
okay, yeah,
kind of almost like a chance meeting. We were struggling to put together the final pieces of the jigsaw that were going to get us over the line to start this project. And through a conversation with him, he liked what we proposed, and he took a massive risk in us and backed us, and he really did help us on our way.
Yeah. That's awesome. Was there government support? Because we're in an area here that used to be like coal mining, the valleys of South Wales that have struggled, I guess, ever since to kind of regenerate. Was there support to build a business here because of that?
Yeah. Again, it's kind of a long story, but sort of our idea and our concept came first. So we sort of approached what was then Forestry Commission Wales and the local authority with the concept. But in the meantime, there was kind of work going on behind the scenes where there was a sort of appetite to build they were calling it a centre of excellence at that time for mountain biking in South Wales as part of Cognation, which was a much bigger investment in mountain biking in South Wales. So it invested at Avon and Cwmcarn and various other places, and this was part of it. So we did get a fairly significant grant, which went towards getting the project off the ground, which was fantastic, and it could not have happened without it at this scale. But it certainly came with its headaches.
Yeah, whenever you get government funding, it seems like a good thing on the surface, but normally a lot of requirements that come with it.
It kind of fed the beast a little bit as well, because it meant that our project had to grow. Our vision was kind of forced to grow by the fact that this grant money was coming in. It went into a competitive tender process. So we were kind of thrown into the pool against a bunch of other people, many of whom had significantly more money than us,
right? And
bigger teams. And we were like, we've got to push to offer the biggest, best thing we possibly can.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I can we remember that period well. It was like, just because it was pushing us so far out of our comfort zone. But it I guess it did what it should have done. It pushed us to make this place bigger and better from the outset. And it probably wouldn't have been if it hadn't been for the way that process was run and, that grant money being available.
That's cool. And then you've got to put together this team to execute, right? So you've got money, you've got everything signed off. Then you need trail builders, you need like people to run the sign on, you need infrastructure, website, drivers, uplifts, all this kind of stuff. Like it must have been.
Yeah, it was carnage, and we were working full time as well. We had other jobs.
You were still in other jobs. Yeah.
Like I had a full-time job until the 4th or 5th year of operation.
So
I only quit a full-time job 6 years ago.
Okay.
And then I worked part-time in another job until 3.5-4 years ago.
Right.
So in those initial setup years, it was like dawn till dusk every day, managing phone calls for one job, trying to sort out bank loans, getting buildings built, trying to work out operational plans. You were on site having an absolute nightmare building the trails. It was absolute carnage.
Yeah, it was a crazy period. So Anna and Liz, our partners and now wives, they were both working in the business full time when we launched, but they only sort of phased into that. So we had a long period where we were all just juggling 2 jobs. And then I was working on the project for the construction phase through the trail building company. And then, we both sort of went back to our day jobs and were trying to figure it all out. And it did take, it took quite a few years for everything to settle down and us to kind of get a structure that really worked. But those early days of trying to get the right team, and we started with a really small team. I think that's probably worth mentioning as well. I think when we opened, we had, from memory, I think it was 12 employees, and
it was 12 including us.
Okay,
so it was 8 employees.
Yeah,
and we're now at 96. So it's quite a.
It's kind of hard to believe, really, because it's not proproportional. The change over the years is not proportional. We're underprepared when we started.
We really were. I actually remember the day we opened. There was like a queue of cars from here all the way down to the A470 roundabout, because we were like signing people in with paper and all sorts of things on the entrance. We had to get like our parents and our friends in because it was just too chaotic. And we opened on a Saturday, I think, and on a Sunday I had to go to Eurobike. So I was here like signing people in until like 2 p.m. and then I was like, I've got to go, guys. I've got to jump in a van and drive to Germany. And I just had to go and leave them.
Wow. That's insane. It must have felt good though to have it finally open, to see people riding and being in this like bike resort that you dreamed of so many years ago.
Yeah, definitely. That first day was it's something we'll never forget. We're up and running. It's mentally busy. Like we've got a load of things that don't work and we've got to fix them. But we're up and running. You know, there's people coming through the door, and that's the bit you never knew. So it felt like we created a monster. We just had to like tame it and work out how to operate it then. So the first 6 months were crazy. Yeah. But we just had to learn fast.
Yeah. It was kind of mixed. It was like a relief in that we knew, okay, there's a business here.
Yeah, people want to come.
Work. People want to come, because we didn't even know that. You know, like we really didn't know. We thought they probably would, but we weren't sure.
Yeah.
But then it was like, oh my God, actually more people want to come than we can cope with. And we had been so focused on making the place ready that we hadn't had enough time to actually get it operationally ready. Like I remember the four of us sitting in the cafe at midnight the night before we opened and stacking the last drinks cans on the shelves and being like, okay, I guess we're ready. And then we weren't really ready. We were as ready as we could have been.
It's pretty normal, I think. How many trails were there when you opened?
So it is 26 sections. Yeah. So we made, and we're now at like 46.
Okay.
We had a good offering from day one, and that was like really important. We actually, collectively made a decision that, that's why people come. Ultimately, everything else helps and supports it. You got to have a really good uplift. You got to have a good cafe, but they want to come and ride trails. So we wanted to give enough variety in the grading and also like in the style of trails. So I think for where we were at that point in time, there weren't a lot of other bike parks. I think we really achieved that. And then we've tried to keep that as our mantra, always keep expanding and growing the trail network.
Yeah. Tell us a bit about that growth and how have you done it? How have you managed it? And how have you decided what direction you want things to go in? Because if like Bike Park Wales today, there's a lot of similarities to Bike Park Wales 10 years ago, but it feels like quite a different beast as well, really.
Yeah, we've been on quite a journey, I guess. And we've evolved as individuals, we've evolved as a company, and we've evolved as a product, I guess, as well. And I think deciding what to do each time is just like a collective process, and it's kind of done on gut feeling, isn't it? It's like knowing the market, knowing what people want, being our own customers. It's a big part of it. It's
being in it. You can feel it, I sometimes think. We're out there riding all the other venues and we travel a lot, and so we're picking up like what's going on around the world a lot of the time, or trying to, and then just kind of feeling like where are we missing something, whether that be trails or in facilities around here and the experience, and then it's just we work it through collectively, discuss it, and then put together like a development plan. It's good that we're a private company and we can react fast, and we're still quite a small company, so we can do things quickly, but there's still a lot of planning and consents and things that sit behind all of that. So sometimes, our plans might take 2 or 3 years to actually, from when we first discuss it till we can put it on the ground.
And our business model is kind of one of continual reinvestment. Like we never got into this because we wanted to be millionaires. We just did it because we thought it was a good idea and we kind of wanted to do it. So we've like really heavily reinvested in the business for the whole 10 years. And I think sometimes the outside world, because we've ended up with these really nice buildings and loads of trails, everyone's like, oh, those guys are coining it. And actually someone told me the other day they were at a pump track in the southeast and they said, oh, Rowan from Bike Park Ways, he makes 2 million a year.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, that'd be
nice,
right, wouldn't
it?
So the model is really just like keeping the money going back into the business and just kind of making it better and better all the time. And it's meant that we have traveled from where we were 10 years ago to where we are now, and we're not done yet.
And I think we ride a lot, we're both still like really passionate riders, and I think we've got a pretty good finger on the pulse, so if we're excited about something and we want to do something and our team are, then hopefully that translates into our customers.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the biggest changes that I've seen here, I guess, in the last 10 years is the area around the car park, the sign-on. We've got this separate sign-on building that didn't used to be there. But also when you say resort, it really does now have that feeling, like all the outside seating areas, like loads of different spaces, fire pits, the fact that there's beers available. Like people seem to genuinely want to hang around here. Like they'll finish riding, but hang around chatting with their mates and sitting in deck chairs and
that's good to hear, because that's been a big focus for us, particularly in the last year. Like that's actually been a specific focus, was really making that. It's kind of one of the aspects that was quite good before, but we were like, we just really want to nail that a bit better. So
yeah, definitely been a concerted effort. And it's also like the analogy of a resort is something that we have used from before day one.
Yeah.
So if we were talking to the council or the forestry, we had to give them something that was tangible that they could understand, because we couldn't say like, look at this bike park. So we'd use ski resort model, and that was always what we wanted, was to bring together all those facilities so you had like a complete experience.
Yeah.
You know, people come for the trails, but hopefully, you know, they stay for the food and the drink, and you give them a nice environment to chill out in.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess it's like, it must be helping the local area, right? What are the numbers now? Like how many people would you have here over a weekend these days?
So it's pretty variable across the year, but we get about 100,000 riders a year. So it's quite significant, like not just for the area, but actually nationally in Wales. Like as a tourist attraction now, it's nationally important. And kind of locally for the economy, you know, restaurants, hotels, Airbnbs have been massively impacted by it.
Yeah.
You know, we're pretty well connected with the local authority and the local community, and the impact of the business has been really significant in the local area. Like I don't know the number anymore, but you're talking 60 plus accommodation businesses that have started off the back of it.
Wow.
It's a lot.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, so a lot of jobs.
Yeah, definitely. And as it's grown, you know, there's the challenges of dealing with all these extra people, and it's probably some of the less glossy stuff, but like growing car parking space, sorting out enough uplifts, all that kind of stuff. That must have brought some challenges and headaches along the way, I guess.
Yeah, I think those are probably the aspects that we enjoy the least, would be fair to say.
Well, you're riders, right? You're not like...
Exactly, yeah. We're kind of reluctant businessmen, I think. Yeah, they're the hardest things, but they're so important as well. Like you got to get them right. And as Rowan alluded earlier, it's not always just a case of, right, we need to build a bike park, let's raise the money and do it. There's a lot of red tape, like an awful lot, and you've got to go through the planning process and get consents from landlords and ecology, and it just takes a really long time. So we have got better at it over the years, and we now have a master plan, which is like a very official sounding thing, but it takes us through several years of development. And that's got planning permission, and it means that it's much easier for us to sort of chip away at things like additional car parking's already got planning approval. So we've got better at planning it. And then, the sort of people side of it, with 96 people, it means you've got to be structured like a proper company. You need to have HR. You've got to have like an accounts department. It's not just one person now. I think there's 5 people in the accounts department.
Health and safety.
Yeah.
That's something we always manage in-house, but we've actually got a dedicated officer now.
Okay.
It's quite a risky activity, not so much the riding, that's understood. But obviously we effectively operate like a mini construction team with the trail crew, and we've got a bus company operating on the hill.
Yeah.
So there's lots of
room for things to go wrong.
Yeah, health and safety probably, well, not even probably, it's definitely what Rowan and I spend the most of our time talking about. Like I wish it was glossy stuff and trails, but it's not. It's health and safety.
Yeah.
We've got a massive responsibility to our riders, and it is a risky sport. And you can't remove that risk, but we've got a duty of care to everybody, and we take it very seriously that we have to make it as safe as we can while still keeping it as mountain biking.
Yeah, it's a tricky balance, right?
It's really tough.
Yeah, it's trying to create an environment where people can take part in a risky activity, in the safest way possible. So like everything around that activity, we try and manage quite carefully, and we try and make sure we give people like plenty of information so they can make informed decisions.
Yeah.
But ultimately, mountain biking is mountain biking, and people make their own choices of how far they push themselves.
For sure. Yeah.
And that's difficult. Like when you go out and ride with your friends, that one of you could get hurt when you're out riding, but it's different when you bring it into like the business environment. It's something you got to get used to, is the fact that people come and they're coming for fun. They're coming to have a smile on their face, and sometimes they're going off with a broken collarbone.
Yes, not so much fun at that point.
It's without a doubt the the worst part of the job for me is riders getting hurt. Nobody wants to see riders getting hurt, and even when you do absolutely everything you can to try and control it, it's ultimately there are uncontrollable aspects of our sport.
For sure, it's going to happen, isn't it? How many people are on that trail crew, both building and maintenance these days? And how do you look at that like balance between maintenance and continually building stuff? Because you've got to do both, right?
Yeah, sure. That's our plan, and we have over time, we've slowly built up the team so that we can achieve that. So we've now got 10 people within the team, and they look after all of the trail network. They look after the uplift road as well.
Okay.
And then they'll work on like new projects, whether that's revamp of an existing trail or a complete new project. So it's taken time to get there. We started off with 2 trail crew, 1 quad and 1 digger. And then we'd sub in, if we're building a new trail, we'd bring in a subcontractor.
Yeah.
And now we have, as I say, 10 people, 5 diggers, and I think like 4 quads or side by side. So, you've got to resource that team so they can do the job.
Yeah.
It's the whole site. It's like 2,000 acres. The bit that we mainly operate in is 1,000 acres. Uh-huh. So you can imagine like these guys are spread all over the hill working. So we've got a good system. We've got some really good people in the team as well. And it's great. What we're able to do now through upskilling them over time. It's amazing. They can build some awesome trails.
Yeah, and it feels well maintained as well. Like some bike parks get hammering, and this more than anyone else. I think like 100,000 people a year is a lot of tires, a lot of braking.
Yeah, the guys do an amazing job. It's a challenging hill to look after as well. Like we've got really variable soil types in the winter. The weather's not the best. There are areas where it's extremely wet, and it's really difficult to manage this hill. But the guys have learned over the years how to do a great job with water management, the materials that work, the materials that don't work.
Yeah.
And
actually, we feel this place rides the best in the wet.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think in terms of like the standard of that maintenance, it's like a non-negotiable from day one. Prior to that, I was doing some inspection work for the forestry, and so I was kind of familiar with how they manage their trails. But they just didn't have the resource. You could identify all this work, but actually to stay on top of it is a big challenge. So our business model from day one was all about how you pay to ride here and you reinvest that money into maintaining that standard.
Yeah.
If those standards are dropping, then we're not doing our job well.
Yeah. Fair.
From day one, we used to say that every penny of selling ride passes, pedal passes was reinvested back into the trails, but we've kind of blown that way out of the water now. We spend way more than we take in pedal passes on trail building.
Ah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So would you say the way you build trails has evolved over the time that you've been doing it? Like, have you changed your kind of style or?
I think there's a natural sort of evolution with anything through experience. But the style that we started with is about, like when I speak to the team, I say our trails are all about momentum and flow. So even if they're technical, like we label a lot of our trails technical trails, you've got to be able to find the flow on them. So we don't tend to build janky trails.
Okay.
So I think that's part of the experience of Bike Park Wales. We've learned a lot about the geology of the hill over time. And that really helps, like when we're planning a trail, like knowing where the ground is good, where the ground is bad.
Yeah.
Or sometimes you need to like win some material to use to shore up an area. So that's been a continual learning experience. And just the evolution of riding, both in terms of what other people are doing elsewhere and us experiencing that and wanting to bring a bit of that to the park and ideas our team have.
Yeah.
Giving them the opportunity to use their creativity.
Nice. And 10 years on, there is more competition out there. There are more bike parks in the UK than there ever has been, I think. Have you felt the impact of that there? And how do you think about the competitive element of this? Because there are now more places for people to go and ride.
Yeah. I think we kind of like each time you hear whispers about a new place, you're kind of like, okay, what's this going to be and what's it going to mean for us? But I think that in Wales, let's sort of talk about Wales because that's kind of the most relevant because it's where most of the bike parks are and it's our locality. We've got a pretty good ecosystem of bike parks and I feel like we all specialize in our own particular thing. And I think it actually works really well. And like, I don't feel like we've been particularly cannibalized by anyone else. And hopefully we complement each other. And we know for a fact that a lot of people will come and stay and they'll do a day here and they might do a day at Dirt Farm and they might go and do a day at Forest of Dean or whatever.
Yeah. Like
and I think
in tour of Wales.
And in North Wales, they've got a similar thing. Like I was just telling you before this, I'm going to Dyfi on Friday and then on Saturday I'm going to Antur, and you can do a similar thing up there. So I think like we all have sort of specialized in a certain thing really, and it's really good that way that we complement one another.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. I think it's easy from the outside. It'd be easy for someone to say, oh, you guys are all in competition with each other, but it's not at all. You know, it's, I think we're complementary, and I think collectively within Wales, we're growing that sport, and that's just bringing more people into it.
Yeah.
We've actually got like a really good working relationship with them as well, particularly during COVID when we were all on our knees. We kind of grouped together really well, and we've kind of dropped it a little bit recently, but we were having kind of fairly regular catch-ups as a team, partly to just support one another, but also to try and sort of share ideas on how we can move the sport forward. And that's something we'll definitely continue doing because I think it's really useful.
Yeah, definitely using the power of that combined group. I was going to ask about highs and lows, and I guess COVID must be one of the lows, effectively shutting down all the bike parks in the UK. How was that for you guys? How risky was it? I don't know how things work financially in that instance.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that's probably the lowest moment since we've been operating. It's been super difficult, and I got to take my hat off to Martin because he steered the ship through what was a horrendous time, I'd say. Like, we really, really did not know how, like anyone, we didn't know how it was going to unfold. We didn't know how long we wouldn't have customers, whether we had any form of income. We had a massive payroll with a lot of staff, and it was genuinely like scary, and we would catch up daily all through that. Like, we didn't have a day off through COVID. I'll let Martin tell you his experience, but yeah, he did an amazing job of keeping this business afloat.
Yeah, because you're responsible at that point for a lot of staff, right?
Yeah, that was the hard bit, was like, it wasn't just us, it was the team. So it's definitely the hardest time in my career, but probably the time I'm the proudest of as well, because like we did a good job as a team. Like, we got through it with the smallest amount of damage as we could have got away with. It was incredibly tough. Like, just before we went into lockdown, basically people stopped booking, like done, tap switched off, nothing coming in, everything going out. And just like, what on earth happens now?
Yeah.
Because keeping the lights on is very expensive these days. It's hundreds of thousands a month just to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
And when all of a sudden nothing's coming in, that's a big panic.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we just kind of hustled our way through it and did everything we could to support the team. Our customers were amazing. So many people were like, I've got a booking with you, but I'll leave it there and I'll pick it up when you're open again. And like, that was a huge help for us. Welsh government support was important.
Yeah.
Obviously the furlough scheme, like, that was an absolute lifesaver. We would not have made it without that. So it was life or death.
Yeah.
Like, it was really close, and it just dragged on as well, because we here in Merthyr, we were caught by every possible lockdown. We had our own Merthyr specific lockdowns. We had Welsh lockdowns when England wasn't in a lockdown.
Oh, no.
And then we had periods where Wales was open but England wasn't, and most of our customers come across the border from England. So we just got caught in the crossfire of everything. So we were completely closed for 10 months in total. It definitely has left its scars still. But we bounced back really strong afterwards. Like, again, customers just amazing. Like, when we came out of it, they were just, I can't wait to get back. And it was just, I remember the day when we opened and the site was busy again. It was just like, wow. Because this place was like a ghost town. It was so weird. Yeah,
as I say, it's such a strange time, because we spent a lot of time on site. So we kept some of the trail team working right throughout, just, fixing things up and trying to do what we could to freshen the site, to make sure that when we reopened, there was like that surge,
buzz. Yeah.
But it just felt so it's just so strange, seeing the site with no one here. There'd be like 5 people on site. Yeah. So yeah, to see it back to normal and full of people and buzzing was brilliant.
Yeah, good to have it
It
back
actually
up
hit
and
at a
running.
really bad time as well. This building we're sitting in now was half built when COVID hit. So we had, builders on site spending loads of money on building this new building. So like our reserves were lower than they would typically be as well. And I just had to have a meeting with the builders and be like, sorry guys, like I think you should stop now. We'll pay you for everything you've done and we'll give you a call when we're ready. And they came back like 18 months later or something when they finally could and finished the job off.
Crazy. Have there been other lows along the way then?
There's definitely been bumps in the road. I think that's the biggest one, but it's an incredibly challenging business to run. Like you just can't predict what's coming next, whether it's storms, fires, floods, HR crises, you name it. We haven't had locusts yet, but I'm sure it'll happen.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, eh? But some highs, yeah?
Yeah.
What stands out for you? Obviously, there's that original opening day, but have there been other pieces throughout the last 10 years that really stand out in your memories?
For me, sharing it with my kids.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's a special moment.
That's a really big high. And them like just loving it. And I was putting one of my kids to bed the other night and he's like, am I going to be the boss of Bike Park Wales? So yeah, that's been cool. And I think for me, the other one is just like getting to ride with loads of interesting people and, idols here over the years has been cool.
Yeah, definitely. We're massively into sport. We're fanboys ourselves. So like to have all the people who've been through the doors, it's been awesome. The Legends edit we did with
that was so
PT
good.
Warner,
That was a good time.
Will and Paigey, they're all class acts, and to have them here was great. And then right through to the new school, like having Cade at the Vanta Jam and Jordan Williams came and did our Race Not a Race, so it's been really cool to kind of see that high end. But the other high I think is you do have those, they don't come often enough probably, but they just have those like moments of reflection when you're kind of walking outside and you just see the buzz is happening at the end of the day, and you're kind of looking at the mix of people there and thinking, we've created those smiles. Like, I think that's probably the most enjoyable aspect of it.
Yeah, that's very special. Tell us a bit about Vanta. So that was the line that was designed by Laurie Greenland and the crew here, right?
Yeah, it was a collaboration between Laurie and Duncan Ferris.
Okay.
And Red Bull, got to give them a shout out.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. yeah. Red Bull kind of had the brainchild. We had the line. It's a line that I plotted out years ago. We didn't know exactly what we were going to use it for. Like the idea was it would be a pro line. Okay. And then we realized we could use it for this Red Bull project. Dunk had a load of ideas which he had in his head for years and been looking for an opportunity to get them out there. And then Laurie came in and he added the sort of polish to it. So those two worked together really well.
And then you've had Vanta Jam for the last 2 years, is it? It's been
running? 2 years now. And that's been really fun. Like the concept was just, we were like, well, we've got this trail now. We've done a launch of it with Laurie, and then kind of what next? And the vision to have just a loose jam was the first start of it. There was no event planned around it. It was just kind of a jam, and it grew from there. And then it grew again this year, and the riders who come each year get better and better, and the format's changed a bit. We've now got prize money, and it will never become a Crankworks or a super rigid event. The whole sort of point of it is that it's loose, and it'll always be a jam. But yeah, we want to keep evolving that, and kind of celebrating the trail really.
And it brings in a good crowd, right? You had quite a lot of people coming to spectate and hang out for the evening.
Yeah, I think we had 1,500 people this year, and it was on a Tuesday. So
that's pretty insane, isn't it? How important then are people like Red Bull, Fox, I think also help support that? Like you have the logos on the vans of a lot of these brands. Like, is that a big part of keeping this thing going? Yeah,
it is. It's a massive part. And it has been since day one, really. Like, especially in the early years, like, because we explained earlier, we had to borrow a load of money to get this place off the ground. And that means that money has to be repaid, right? So for the first 5 years, we had that around our neck. And sponsors definitely helped us keep the place running.
Yeah.
And they remain really important today. And we're really lucky with the partners that we've got. And some of them we've had for 10 years. We've been with Trek for 10 years, Shimano, MBUK, and in our industry, that's pretty rare to have partnerships for so long.
Yeah.
Hopefully it means that they value the partnerships, but we certainly do. We really like working with them. They're all like really chill as well. We don't have sponsors like breathing down our necks saying you must do this and you must do that. Like it's they've been great and really important for us.
Yeah. So 10 years in, a lot has changed. I don't think I went until about the second or third year, but from then on, like the vision that you had has clearly grown and morphed into this thing. It feels much more like a resort, a huge amount of trails. Where do we go from here? Like, I'm taking it you're not done. You're not going to just sit back and be like, right, Bike Park Wales finished.
No, not at all. I think, it's just not in our DNA. It's always about continual improvements. So we're always looking like right across the business, from the food that's on offer to like the speed of the uplift to the trail network, obviously. How can we do things better? And that's something we discuss within our teams all the time. And then if they're bigger projects, then we have to obviously put those into a timeline, get the consents in place. So as we sit here today, we're quite excited about what's to come. We've got most of our consents kind of in place to allow us to develop the site further.
Okay.
Still a bit of work to do. There are a lot of partners involved in getting all the permissions in place, but we're hoping to add in the very short future accommodation to our site.
Interesting. So really go into resort levels.
Yeah.
And I think that's a massive change for us to go from locking the doors to having a 24-hour site where people can choose to stay with us, and doing it in a way that feels like Bike Park Wales as well. Yeah. So we've actually got like custom bespoke designed camping pods rather than sort of off the shelf glamping that we feel fits like what we do, the brand, the site. And we've had a prototype pod made already. And that looks great.
It's great.
So we can be excited about it now.
I'm not calling them pods anymore. They're too nice to be pods. They're lodges.
Lodges. There we go. Sounds better.
How many people will you be able to have on site in the first sort of
So
phase?
we're going to build it in a couple of phases, but in the first phase, 44.
Okay.
A good number of people, and it's going to be really nice. It's going to be done really well. It's all been designed obviously around mountain bikers, so we've considered where you keep your bike and how you keep yourself clean and all that kind of stuff's all been thought through.
Nice.
That's been a big project. I mean, we've had that as part of the vision since day one. But we've been seriously working on it. It's actually 5 years now. We like a big project.
Like we said, some things take time. It's difficult, that like for us, we want to do everything yesterday. So it can be a challenge, but it's just we've still got that aim of like we feel like this site has got more to offer. We can make this better. Accommodation is a big part of that. And then moving on to the hill, like obviously the trail network, we want to keep expanding that. We've done quite a lot over 10 years. We didn't have a beginner trail at all, from the top of the hill when we started out on this, and it was a big change for us to like bring that in, because all of a sudden it changed the dynamic in the park. You could have literally from beginners to expert level pro rider downhillers, and I think going forward it's kind of more of the same on that front. On the trails, we can pretty much double the footprint in the trail network. Whoa. Which I think is pretty amazing, because like even myself, before I went on that journey of like trying to plot it all out, I was kind of wondering like where do we run out of space? Where is there a point where it doesn't work? But no, it's amazing. We'll have over 100 kilometers of trails, probably if we're sat here in 10 years time. That's what
insane. What are you at in kilometers now, roughly?
50.
So double potentially.
So it's a lot. It's not going to happen overnight, but
no, of course. It's taken 10 years to get from 20 trails to 40 trails, roughly. But
So that's super exciting, and then some work to the uplift road. That's going to happen fairly soon. That'll be exciting
to make it kind of smoother, faster,
more direct. Actually cutting a corner off the road, and then excitingly developing 2 drop-off points. So we currently have like a 1, and you have to pedal across to get to the south side. But again, this won't happen overnight, but at some point we're going to add a southern drop-off, so you can get to like 50 Shades and Terry's Belly and those trails over there without pedaling across.
Nice.
Yeah, and that again, that's sort of touching on how we've always had these focal areas, but it takes time to deliver them. So we were able to bring the green trail in at a late, that's probably midway through, and we now want to bring some focus again to people on downhill bikes. Like I still ride downhill, got a downhill bike and love it, and it's a slog, from when you get off to get across to where we got 2 of our current downhill tracks starting. It's quite hard work. And we want to add more trails to that zone. So that'll become like more of a hub. So the idea is having that secondary drop off, it opens up for everyone, but certainly people who want to come on downhill bikes, which isn't a huge market, but it's really important to us. It's part of what Bike Park Wales is.
Yeah.
I'm quite excited about us having that second drop, but yeah, they take a bit of time, but watch the space.
Awesome. And some land management changes, right?
Yeah, that's kind of the big one. So we lease the land off of the Welsh Government, and Natural Resources Wales are the land manager. So our kind of relationship is with them. And for the last 10 years, they've been allowed to fell trees within the bike park and sell the timber. They haven't done much of it, but they've been allowed to. And it's been this constant kind of threat that it could happen at some point, and the impact that it would have on the bike park would be really hard to manage. And to be fair to them, they've known that it would be very impactful for us and tried to avoid it, but it's kind of just been like this polite loggerhead for 10 years of them kind of avoiding the problem, us kind of hoping it wasn't going to happen. So we approached them 5 years ago with a concept of how it could potentially be managed, and that was that in loose terms, you draw a line around the bike park, and that area of the forest is earmarked as a bike park, and it's managed for recreation for the bike park and to enhance ecology in the area, and that there's no commercial felling in the forest there. It's a completely unique concept on Natural Resources Wales land. It's never been done before, which is why it's taken 5 years to get it through the process. But they did kind of like the idea. Well, they've come around to the idea. And we're very close to having that finalised now. And it's taken a huge amount of work on both sides, like from Natural Resources Wales to try and get their operating model to accept it, and for us to work out what can and can't work for us. But it's a fundamental change. It gives us way more rights within the bike park to develop the trails. But also I think Rowan and I are both equally excited about what we can do with the hill environmentally, because hillsides in Wales tend to be either clear-felled and used for sheep grazing or covered in fir trees.
And then clear-felled. And that's typically, that rotation that this forest would go through without a bike park here is, the conifer trees grow for 30, 40, 50 years, clear-felled and replanted. There are other systems, but, that would be a big part of what would happen on this hill. So to think that like the presence of the bike park being here is actually like retaining all that tree cover. That's what we're looking towards, is it being protected and within that area. And then on top of that, increasing like the biodiversity. So we're going to work together with NRW to try and enhance the broadleaves within the area. So the native trees will be given precedent. There'll be works undertaken to thin out around them, let them take hold. And I think it's a really nice part of this project now that we're actually able to have in a local level, a positive environmental impact on it.
Yeah, that's super cool, eh?
Yeah, and it's a really unique model. Like for Natural Resources Wales, they get an income from us. So they're not going to get to sell the trees, but they'll get an income from us, which will be more than the value of the trees. Plus they get to tick the box of, biodiversity involving people in the forests. And for us, it's amazing that our business and our community can support keeping this hillside alive, and it will evolve over the coming decades to be far better than it is now. And that's going to be a really unique opportunity to take a hillside like that and manage it in that way, so that it will be quite unique in a couple of decades, the sort of variety of species that are found on that hill.
Nice work. And it's becoming a bit of a a destination, right? It's people, I keep hearing accents from all over the world these days when I come here, which is pretty rare, any riding destination in the UK. It must be super rewarding, not only, like you say, to feel the buzz in here at the end of a day, but also to know that buzz is, it's not all just people, from the UK, is it?
Yeah, definitely. I think, something I feel really proud about, I think we all collectively do, is to think that, like, Merthyr Tydfil it's not a town that's had a good rep over the years, and now we're attracting a lot of people. They come and stay in Merthyr, they spend in the area. They're from all across the UK and abroad, as you say. Yeah, prior to COVID, you'd hear accents from everywhere, and now, thankfully, that's coming back again. And it is a great success story to think, all these people are coming and spending their time and money in the South Wales valleys.
That's been really great. And Rowan and I went to Medina in Tasmania 3 years ago, just before COVID, I think it was, to a conference over there, and to be presenting the story of Bike Park Wales in Tasmania, to have been invited there to tell the story and for people to know about Bike Park Wales in Tasmania was pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's a sick bike park, by the way.
Yeah, it does look like a lot of fun. Yeah, I was watching the EWS there, thinking it needs to be visited at some point. Good stuff. Well, it's been super interesting chatting to you guys. I'm excited to see what the next 10 years holds, because you've made a lot of progress in the last 10. Before we wrap up, a couple of things. First off, I was going to ask, have you got any advice for people that are maybe looking to undertake a large project in the mountain bike world? Because, there aren't many examples on this scale, I think. So I'm interested to hear given what you know now, like what advice would you offer to people that are going to bite off potentially more than they can chew, but work out how to chew it over time?
I was going to say don't, but I won't say that.
It's building a team is really important. We were very lucky, as I say, we started out discussing it together, and soon realised that our partners at the time had really complementary skills that were between the four of us. Felt like we covered a lot of the areas, just in the planning phases. Yeah. Obviously, as soon as you get to operations, it's completely different. I think that's really important. And never giving up is probably the biggest thing that we've
That's
learned.
What I was going to say. Tenacity.
It's tenacity, one foot in front of the other. Yeah. You're going to get so many barriers, hurdles, things that it feels like it'll never happen. And you just got to be going forwards one step at a time, because we had to pick each other up so many times. And still do, where things come out of left field and it's tough. So it's just, I think that's probably the simplest advice.
Yeah, I'd say exactly the same. Tenacity. Just we did have so many things that felt like complete showstoppers. Couldn't see a way through. But luckily, because we had a team, we just didn't give up. So that would be my advice: is if you think your idea is good, and just don't give up.
Nice, good advice. If people want to find out more or book their visit to come to Bike Park Wales and have a play, where should they be looking?
So our website's the best place, so bikeparkwales.com. And then Instagram, I think we're bikepark_Wales. Facebook, all the usual places.
Nice. I shall stick links in the show notes. People can find that. But yeah, thank you. It's been a fun morning on the trails and lovely sitting down and having a chat. And yeah, like I say, I'm excited to see how the next 10 years goes. And maybe next time I come here, I'll be staying in a lodge. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Chris.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot.
Cheers.